Hi, I'm Natalie Bouchard, and you're listening to Inside NC Labor, a podcast designed to inform and educate North Carolina citizens on the role that the Department of Labor plays in state government. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inside NC Labor. I'm Natalie Bouchard.
I'm Dolores Questenberry in the Communications Office.
And today we have a very special guest. Harriet, would you like to introduce yourself?
Certainly. I'm Harriet Hopkins, and I'm the administrator of the Retaliatory Employment Discrimination Bureau, which is a mouthful.
It is a mouthful.
So we refer to it as REDB?
Yes.
Great. So what exactly does REDB do?
So our bureau is one of 5 different bureaus under standards and inspections in the Department of Labor, and we're charged with investigating complaints that employees file under the Retaliatory Employment Discrimination Act, which is also a mouthful.
Known as RETA.
Known as RETA.
Great.
We use the shorthand for that, RETA.
Why was RETA enacted?
That's a great question. So RETA was enacted in 1992. And some people listening might recall that in 1991, there was a terrible, terrible fire in Hamlet, North Carolina, at the Imperial Foods chicken processing plant. And what happened was all of the doors had been locked from the outside. And there was a fire, I think some vat of fat or something had caught fire, and people couldn't get out. And 25 people died. And 50 or so, I think, were also seriously injured. And it turned out that afterwards, some of the employees basically said that they knew that there were issues with this, and they knew they couldn't escape in the event of a fire, but they were too afraid to speak up because they thought they would lose their jobs. Small community, there weren't many places to work, they were worried about their jobs. And so obviously people were alarmed and mortified, and it was a terrible, terrible tragedy. And so the legislature, the General Assembly, started looking at a process to try to encourage, rather not discourage people, in particular in that situation, from bringing safety concerns to either not even just to management, but to OSHA, to state agencies. And so that's what happened. They decided it was important to enact something, and they, from what I can understand from the legislative history, they thought about, well, what's the process that would, make people feel protected to be able to come forward and make a complaint about something of concern in the workplace. And that's how it came about. So it was initially motivated by a safety issue. But initially there were 4 or 5 other statutes that were incorporated. There used to be an anti-retaliation statute section in the workers' comp statute, and they moved it over to RETA. And so over the years, over the last couple decades, they've added a number of those elected protected activities that are.
And now you say there's 11?
There are 11.
What are some common misconceptions about REDB?
Okay, I like that question because a lot of people do have misconceptions, and I've found that when I get asked that question, a lot of times what I talk about is what RETA isn't before I talk about what it is. Basically, it's a anti-discrimination statute in the employment arena. So when you guys think of employment discrimination, what do you think about?
Yeah.
What everybody else does.
Yeah, race,
right?
Gender.
Exactly.
National origin.
All the things we refer to the EEOC.
EEOC.
That's correct. And so those federal statutes cover a lot of different kinds of discrimination. Title VII is one that y'all are talking about. There's the Age Discrimination Act. There's the Pregnancy Discrimination Act. There's the ADA. There are all sorts of federal statutes. But what RETA is, it's a special state statute. And North Carolina is actually relatively unique in having its own retaliatory employment discrimination statute. And so what the difference is on the federal side with a lot of those statutes, the protections are based on your status. They're based on, are you a woman? Are you African American? Are you a Muslim? It's your status. And under RETA, because it's a retaliatory protection statute, it has to do with protecting people's conduct in the workplace. And so what that means is here's a typical example. Somebody who's been injured at work and threatens to file a workers' comp claim, and it makes the employer mad, and they terminate them. If the employee can show that the termination was because of that, filing the complaint, that's the kind of thing that we investigate. So it's not because the person had an accident. It's not the person was maybe unable to work because of the accident.
Right.
It's not the status of having been injured. It's pursuing rights under the Workers' Comp Act.
Okay, that makes sense. So another example would be like the safety and health complaint.
That's right.
Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So under RETA, there are actually 11 different statutes that protect certain activities. And so workers' comp was one, but you're right, the Occupational Safety and Health Act is another big one. That's one of the 3 biggest categories of complaints that we receive. And so what those are folks, those are employees who observe something in the workplace that's either unsafe, or they discovered something in the line of work that they do that they're physically doing that seems unsafe, or there might be a health risk. Often what we see is they'll go to their supervisor, or they might call the helpline, the NCDOL helpline, and talk with the OSH folks and get some advice about what their rights might be. The retaliation can take a lot of different forms. It's not just termination.
Right.
So that person might be, transferred to another location, or hours are reduced, or things like that. So the occupational safety and health is a big area of cases that we get.
So with the general public, if they just think about the word retaliation, it will probably help them, because our call center gets a lot of calls.
Yes.
That we have to funnel to other agencies like the EEOC, because they are confused about who to call.
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah.
So a couple of years ago, we added retaliatory back into the Bureau's
title.
name. Yeah, and I think that has helped somewhat.
It does. It has to help over time as people get more comfortable with that.
Right.
Yeah. But we get thousands of calls a year to our helpline, and we get a lot of those referrals from the help desk. And some of them are directly sent to EEOC, and some of them there's a question in the mind of the person taking the call, and so they send them to us. And our admin, our information officer, does a great job of really listening to folks. And we make referrals not only to the EEOC, but sometimes to the Industrial Commission if somebody has a workers' comp claim, or sometimes what they're calling about is actually under a federal OSHA statute, and so we'll refer them to the local federal office.
Do you know roughly how many cases you handle, say, in a year?
We get over 400 complaints filed a year. Some of those don't state a claim under RETA. Like, we might get a written complaint from somebody who felt like she was discriminated against because of her sex. And we don't have the authority to investigate something like that. So that would be one that we would refer, but then we would also just not open that case because we don't have the jurisdiction to investigate it. So we've been short-staffed the last couple of years, but of course the number of complaints coming in hasn't gone down.
Right.
But we generally try to close as many cases as we open, but the last couple of years we haven't been able to do that. But to answer your question specifically, it's 400 plus every year. Now, not all of them get investigated because some of them, people decide they just want to withdraw it, or they want to ask for their right to sue letter, which is something else we could talk about if you want to. Under RETA, and it's very similar to the EEOC process, that if you have filed your complaint and 90 days has passed, you have the right to go ahead and just request your right to sue letter. You don't have to wait for an investigation. But the big picture of RETA is you have to, an aggrieved employee has to file with us first. Can't just go to court.
Right.
So you file with us, we do an investigation, and at the end of the investigation, we make a recommendation of merit or no merit. But whatever the determination is, they still go to court. They get their right to sue letter. So what I was saying before is after 90 days, if the person wants to not wait and they just want to go have their day in court, they can ask for that letter. The other thing that we do at the end of an investigation process is we invite the parties to discuss settlement if they want to, especially in merit cases, because the statute actually tells us we're supposed to try to help the parties informally resolve their disputes, which we're just really in favor of. It works great for everybody if they can resolve.
I mean, that makes
their
the most
dispute.
sense.
Yeah. In fact, right now, what I am working on is setting up a program at the beginning. Once we get caught up with our cases, I would like to offer alternative dispute resolution early on after a complaint is filed.
Sure.
So that's sort of one of my long-range goals.
Right. That'd make a
That's
huge
awesome.
difference. That's great.
Yeah.
So if people want to file a complaint or get in touch with REDB, how could they contact you all?
Yes, they can call the main number, the 1-800-625-2267 number, which is the NC Labor number, and they'll be referred to us, and we will happily take their call, and we will talk with them about their potential claim, and then we'll send them forms if they want to go ahead and file a complaint.
That's great. One of the things we're going to do for the public to help them understand a little more about the Retaliatory Employment Discrimination Bureau is we're introducing a new column in our newsletter, our external newsletter. And if anybody listening today is not a subscriber, they can subscribe. But Harriet is going to author a new column. So tell us about that.
Okay. Well, I'm really excited about this because I've been reading the Labor Ledger every month since I have been here.
Wow.
Yay, we love to hear
And
that.
I love reading the Wage and Hour column and the
Workplace Worries.
The Workplace Worries column. Yeah. So ours is going to be called Retaliatory Rights. We wanted to keep that alliteration going. In the column, we hope to showcase certain specific examples of kinds of complaints we get. We want to help employees who might have concerns or questions about whether something has not been handled correctly for them. We want to provide some information for those folks, and we want to help employers know the sorts of things that they should probably be aware of.
So the January-February edition of the Labor Ledger will include retaliatory rights. So that's where you can grab that copy of that. We send it out bi-monthly. It'll be online as well.
And we have learned over the years that some folks or some businesses will actually print out workplace worries or deadly mistakes and post it on their bulletin board for the employees to read.
That's good to know.
So maybe this is something they'll do with the retaliatory rights column.
So you're going to give me like 1,500 words, right?
That's
Something like that. Something like that.
I would just like to say that we have a terrific staff in my bureau, and I just couldn't be happier about the quality of the investigators and their commitment to the work. And each and every one of them is really dedicated to doing a good job in investigating these claims. We try to be, we are completely fair and impartial. And it's interesting because sometimes the employers think we're on the side of the employees, and the employees think we're on the side of the employers, and so that tells us that we're probably, doing a good job.
That's right.
So the last thing I would like to say is that we don't represent, either party, and sometimes the employees misunderstand. They think that we're there to take their case to court.
Right.
And so that's another thing that we try to make clear at the very beginning so there are no surprises. But it is our job to protect the process. So we're not there to protect the employee or the employer, but we are there to protect the process that the legislature saw fit when they to undertake when they enacted the statute. Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for being here, Harriet.
You're welcome.
We've learned a lot, and we look forward to your first article in the upcoming edition of the Labor Ledger.
Thanks so much for
You're
stopping in
welcome.
today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thanks so much for tuning in, y'all. Remember, your safety is our priority.